Is there a way to tell by way of a siman, a sign, if someone is the Nasi Hadar?
It's an uncomfortable question to answer, and I'll tell you why. Because answering the question takes away from the purity of it. I'll give you a simple example. A lot of people are preoccupied with proof for God. Proof means that there's a God. Proof. They consider it a part of the development of their faith to have proof that the God exists. And it's true, it is a part of being a believer to have proof that there's a God. The moment you intellectualize the Eibishter, it's not the Eibishter anymore. It's the idea of the Eibishter. When you have proof for God, you know He exists, but you have no relationship with Him. You want to make what's called a leap of faith. You want to let go of the proof. Because you don't want a relationship with the God idea. You want a relationship with God. You can't have that intellectually. Your brain will never know God. Your brain can say you can't deny God. Your brain can say you can prove God. But your brain can't be intimate with God. Your soul can. So the exercise, the endeavor of trying to understand the Eibishter intellectually actually distances you from having an intimate relationship with Him. Having pure faith, and people love to use the word blind faith, and it really upsets me. It's not blind faith. It's simple faith, because it's not lack of reason. It's the transcendence of reason. It's the understanding that it's worth to let go of your mind that already has substantial understanding and proof of the existence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so you can have an intimacy with Him. You got to let go of your brain, because your brain can't relate to the Eibishter. It's not a tool for it. Only your soul is. So in a similar way, tzadikim daimim lebeiram. When you talk about the Rebbe, there's a certain constant here. Nasi Hadar doesn't mean the president of a corporation. Nasi Hadar has halachic criteria, right? And by the way, if I'm not wrong, the one who coined the phrase Nasi Hadar, ironically, is the Rogatchover, who was a Baal Nigle par excellence, and he referred to the previous Rebbe as Nasi. I heard this from Mendel Marazov personally, that he remembers as a child, he was sent with an Elter Chosid, with Rebbe L'chaim Altes, to summon the Rogatchover to the previous Rebbe, which is strange in itself, because the Rogatchover was not only older than the previous Rebbe, the Rogatchover was older than the previous Rebbe's father, the Rebbe Rashab. They came to the house, he was still in shul, and he walked into the house, and he hastened to go to the previous Rebbe, and his wife said to him, "What about breakfast?" So he said, "The Nasi ruft, mitaram nishvar halten." He coined the phrase Nasi. There's a story in Pei Aleph, which is connected to one of the Chanins, Sheil Brug, Tzell the Maise. Here's the name of one of the Chanins. That the Rogatchover came to the previous Rebbe in 1921. And when they asked him why he came, he said, "Ich mekumum verherren dem Rebbe." I came to give the Rebbe a test. He spent 4 hours with the previous Rebbe alone. And when he came out, he said, "Yidden dafen haben an Nasi." That's where he used that terminology. Jews need a leader, a Nasi. Especially since he deserves it, he's worthy. And then he said cryptic words which were interpreted when the Rebbe became Rebbe. In that order, a son-in-law precedes all, a son precedes all. And people were saying that this was a Niba of Layada, Maniba, when the previous Rebbe passed away with no sons. In any case, he coined the term Nasi Hadar in relationship with the Rabbeim. So there's a nigla side to Nasi, and then of course nigla side to Nasi, generally a Nasi is a melech, in Chumash a Nasi is a melech, but in Halacha Nasi is not a melech, Nasi is the head of the Sanhedrin. But the term Nasi, as it's used in this context, is a mystical term. The concept of Nasi, it says in Kilas Yankiv, which is a Kabbalah Sefer, that Nasi means Nitzutze Shel Yankiv Avinu, a spark of Yankiv Avinu's neshama, and just like Yankiv Avinu had within himself every Jew that would ever exist, because he's the father of the entire nation. So in every generation, the Nasi is Nitzutze Shel Yankov Avinu. His neshama is called a neshama klolis, a general soul, and encompasses the souls of the entire generation. And that's what makes him a Nasi. In other words, Nesios, a Nasi, is a mystical idea. Of course, a Nasi is also a Rebbe and a leader and a Chacham and a Navi. The famous letter from the Rebbe from Gimel Tamas Tafshin Yud, where he enumerates all of the miles of a Rebbe, and he says, Iker Chasam and Sefer Nasi. So, when you say prove who is a Nasi, that idea distances you from the Nasi himself. It's an infant Amunah. What do we know about Nasi? You know, the Alt Rebbe had a chassid named Michal Apotzker, yeah? So Machzadek had a chassid named Hil Paracher. They were such spiritual people, they related to the neshama. You relate to the neshama, you know Nasi in a microcosm, in a small way, by experiencing it from the levels of the neshama, the highest levels of the neshama, the chaya and yechida. What do we know? We have just a munah. And the engaging in the arguing and the proving takes away from us the necessary bittul, the necessary amunah that we must have in having a relationship with the Nasi Hador. So the question itself is disturbing. In other words, you don't want to ask the question. Not because the question doesn't have an answer, because the question takes away what a rebbe and a chassid relationship is. When you intellectualize rebbe chassid, it's not rebbe chassid anymore. But still, the rebbe himself, on many occasions, explained how you see Nasi. And one of the things the rebbe said, the rebbe told one story of and the two boys came to interview him for a newspaper. And they sat there and took notes. And they asked the Rebbe repeated this, what was the difference between the previous Rebbe and all of the Gedolei Yisrael of his generation? So he said the previous Rebbe did not have an issue, did not have a cause. There was not something the previous Rebbe was concerned with. His concern was anything that mattered to Jewish people, whether it was material or was spiritual, whether it was alabes or was Seder Satera. One of the things that separated the previous Rebbe from all the other Gedolim of his time, that every single thing that mattered to Jewish people was his job, was his asik, like the famous Sikha from the Rebbe in Chelik Ches, Yud Beis Tammuz, about the difference between the Rebbe Rashab and Achei Temimim, and you could look the Sikha up. Where a Rebbe, this is not, he's not volunteering to help another Jew, this is his job, he's the head. And therefore, anything that happens, any place in the world, to any Jew, this is his business. This is a symptom. This is a gilui. You see nesius in the idea that everything is his asik. But that doesn't tell you, Rebbe, right? When you have proof that this person is a Nasi Hador because you see how he's involved with every single Jew and involved in everything that's Jewish, you don't know what Nasi is because it's a spirit, it's a neshama thing. The proof does not solve the problem. It simply, for 5 minutes, placates the one who's asking the question, and 5 minutes later is going to ask the question again. Because in the end, the relationship between a chassid and a rebbe, who's the Nasi Hador, is a pnimiyasdika thing. It's a neshama thing. And you have to surrender to it, to have a relationship to it. And of course, in the language of Chassidim, the whole mitzvah of a chassid is to give the rebbe nachas ruach, which means to do what the rebbe wants. And this gives us a relationship with the Nasi Hador, on some level, on a ruchniyasdika level also.